I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
And we are live. It's time for another episode of Confessions of a Business Owner. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Diana Tower. How you doing, Diana?
Yay. I am so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. I really enjoyed a couple of interviews I catched you on previously, one with James Stremko, particularly on Superfast Business. And I was like, if the opportunity came, I definitely need to have you on this show.
Yay. No, it's great to be here. I'm excited. This is going to be juicy.
It will be. So I'll just read out your bio quickly here is that Diana Tower is in the business of making people feel. As a community engagement strategist, she helps 7- and 8-figure business owners engage and optimize their flagship communities. And I think that describes you really well. And you do something that I feel is just so important in today's world of business, which is you really have an expertise in talent in communities. So
yeah, I think it's just one of those things that, being able to bring people together and feel certain things, it's really important.
So for people that perhaps don't understand this, because it is a newer thing that's coming to be, could you briefly just describe what you do?
Definitely. I think with community, there's a lot of ways that you can create communities. So for example, if you are running a program, so an online course, maybe you have, say, a membership program and you want to bring your members together. Some people make the mistake of just like, hey, I'll set up a Facebook group and pop you all in there and you'll engage magically. And that's a misconception. And so what I do is I go in and really make sure that the foundation of your community is set up so that it's going to promote engagement. So promoting people connecting. And so, going in there and just making sure that a community is set up properly, looking at like the strategies that you have, it's really funny because it sounds like an oxymoron. So like it's all about emotions and people connecting authentically, but then it's also very strategic. And so I sort of bring that strategy and optimization into a community setting.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because I have fallen victim to being a part of some like tragic Facebook groups or some tragic communities where it's like everyone's in and excited in the beginning and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be brilliant. And then like 1 week later, like ghost town, zero value, and it has died. And like it was often something I was excited about. So very common story.
Definitely. I think that people just have that assumption that people will magically know what to do and what not to do. And so they sort of just leave everyone to their own devices. And you really need to guide people. You need to show them, what's okay here, what isn't okay here. Because if you don't, for example, like if you don't have guidelines telling people what not to do or what isn't kosher here, people are going to be a little bit scared. They're going to think, well, is this okay? And so there's going to be that hesitation, which then could even cause people not to engage or not to post or share something, which can really kill engagement.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great point. And you've already mentioned a few little nuggets of gold or mic drop moments, as I would like to call them, where it's like, we don't like to necessarily perceive that we've been strategically positioned or that we're, making you feel an emotion from there. So it's like, you could go way too far with this stuff and like almost gross people out, but without it, there's nothing.
Well, and that's the thing too, even, some people might feel like it's manipulation. And I think it really depends on where you're coming from with that. Because technically speaking, it is a form of manipulation. Like you're making people feel a certain way, but it really depends on what your intention is. If you're making people feel supported and inspired because you care about them and you want them to succeed, with the course that you're providing, or just even with the membership that you're providing, that's like an authentic, positive way of approaching it. But if you're just like, I want to sell more of my stuff, or I want people to stay in my membership so they keep paying me, like that's gross. Like it doesn't come from a place of authenticity, and people are going to smell it. That's the thing too, is like people are not stupid. Like they can really read what's going on. And so if you're coming from it, from a place of actually caring about your members, it's a win-win for everybody.
Do you know what I find really fascinating in what you just said is like you can absolutely smell it. And I think what's crazy about that is it's from a computer screen. So you're not even near them, but you can taste it when someone needs money or when they're trying to come across from desperation.
Yeah.
But the reality is if they actually just cared and had your interest at hearts, they probably wouldn't have been in that first scenario anyway. So there's a massive
Exactly.
irony in that.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I think that people really forget that, we're online and like we're writing things or we're sharing pictures or we're sharing video. But when you boil it all down, we're dealing with people, we're dealing with humans and feelings, like emotions. Like that's actually, I mentioned this on the other podcast I was on as well. Like emotions is the strategy for community. That's actually what makes it strategic. So if you're able to make people feel a certain way or make people avoid feeling something that they don't want to feel, like excluded or maybe lonely or something like that, like that's really powerful. But it's if you take out the online aspect, it's just like, what would you do in person? Like if you met somebody and you wanted to show that you care about them, or you wanted to kind of connect with them, or, if you wanted to form a relationship with other people, what would you be doing? And it's really actually interesting. What you can do is imagine like you've got a community and you want to welcome people in. What would you do in a real life situation? So imagine if you were joining a yoga class. What do they do to make you feel welcome? So maybe it's like the instructor comes over and talks to you, or maybe another member comes over and says, hey, is this your first day? Like kind of connecting that way. And so you can think, okay, that's what I would do in the real world. What's the online version of that? So maybe it's a welcome video. Maybe it's a private message. Maybe it's hopping on a quick call. Having other members, welcome other new people. I think, it's the same thing. It's a different mechanism to kind of deliver that. And people forget that. People are like, oh, it's online, and they try to systematize everything. I'm very into systems and operation, like sort of optimizing, but like there's a line that you'll cross. So like if you have a bot that like welcomes everyone in and it's canned responses, people can smell it. They know that, oh, this is just the copy and paste message that everyone gets. It's like you really have to be careful. Like there's a line, you have to kind of balance it.
Absolutely. And I think we need to recognize that not all communities share the same emotions. And like that was something huge I took from your other interview was like, I'll use the example is like, if I'm a personal trainer, let's say, hypothetically, is like maybe
Yeah.
I'm wanting people to feel accountable. Like maybe that's something that really sticks for me. But in the example you used in yoga, maybe if I had a yoga group, hypothetically, one day we'll see. But like maybe it's much more about feeling accepted and supported. And like how I would distribute that would be completely different.
100%. And that is exactly why it's the biggest mistake to just copy what other people are doing in their communities. Like, oh, XYZ group is doing this to welcome their members, so I'm going to do the same tactic. That's looking at tactics. That's not looking at the strategy. And the strategy is the emotion. And so like, that's like the number one thing. So like if for example, like when I go in and I audit a community, I'm looking at what is the number one emotion for them. And that takes a little bit of research. Like you actually have to ask people. And that's another thing too, is you might think, oh, my yoga group, they want to feel, accepted 100%. But did you ask them? And you might ask them and maybe they do want to feel accepted, but then the really big response was actually something like just, having fun or feeling inspired or, all these different variations of emotion that you think, oh, really? And then so when they want inspiration versus say feeling proud, that changes everything. It changes the way that you write your welcome posts. It changes the way you welcome people in. It changes how you respond to questions, because you can just sit there and say, okay, how can I make them feel inspired, or how can I make them feel proud of themselves? And, one of the biggest things, and it's so funny, is simply saying it. So like, for example, if somebody wants to feel proud, you can just literally say, I'm so proud of you. Because I mean, if somebody says to me like, Diana, I'm so proud of you because you did this, it's like, I feel all warm and fuzzy, right? Because somebody is telling me that they're proud of me, then I suddenly feel proud. And so it's the same thing. Like if somebody wants to feel supported, I can come in and say, wow, like this is such a fantastic, accomplishment. Like we're here for you. And you can sprinkle in other emotions, because everyone kind of wants to feel proud. Like there's some pretty standard emotions that everyone, feeling appreciated, right? So like if one of your members helps somebody else out, jump in and say, wow, I really appreciate you taking the time to help that other person. And then that actually like splinters out, because then the person that did the thing, they feel appreciated. The person that got helped sees that you're appreciating the other person. So it's like this weird, like, it just like dominoes out. And then it actually teaches other people to do the same action because they want to feel that same feeling as well. So it's as long as you're coming from an authentic, caring place, it's a really wonderful thing. I don't know how people do community strategy without caring and without actually, giving a shit about people. Because I think that would just be a very manipulative, not like, and just too much into the numbers. Like it just feels really wrong. And it's definitely not the way that I do community. But yeah, I think that just really caring about people, it's something that's really important when you're working with community.
I agree so much on that. And I think anyone that runs a successful community would back that to the point. And it's just the fundamental of a community actually working is whoever's running it caring and the other members caring. But I want to dig a little bit more into the point you just mentioned about understanding the emotions. So
Right.
You almost hinted to, but it's like, if you're someone that doesn't understand the emotions of your community or what emotion you want them to feel, are you looking to surveys or quizzes or your marketing to extract that information, or
Yeah.
where do you pull it from?
Exactly. So what I would do is you can probably pull it from just observing in the community, but the easiest way, for example, in a Facebook group, you can do a poll. You literally just set up a poll, and what you do is you probably have a hunch. You probably know that there's like 5 emotions that you really kind of think that they want to feel. You pop them in, you say, hey, and it's super easy, right? Like this is not like hard. You just say like, hey guys, I'd really like to know how you want to feel here. We're really excited to have you here. Let us know which emotion or how you want to feel. If it isn't there, add it in, because they have that option to add in an emotion. So imagine you put like supported, proud, elite, accepted, and appreciated. And then either people put in a different option and then other people start voting for it, or you just notice that like after say a couple days, boom, like pride is like 100%, like nobody else is saying, I just want to feel proud of myself. Just by knowing that, just by doing that, like I said, you then think about that whenever you're doing anything in your community. So when you're writing a post, will this make them feel proud? When you're adding an image, does this image make them feel pride in some sort of way? When you reply to a question, when you comment or anything, it's like, how is this going to make them feel proud? Or whatever that one emotion is. That's probably the easiest way. If you're not on Facebook, just setting up a survey. You can use like SurveyMonkey or even Google Forms, and you do the same thing. You just provide them some options. Also, a really good thing is as well, like if you Google wheel of emotions, you'll get these, it's like rainbows, okay? These really big wheels, and they're very colorful, and they just show all these different emotions. So it's not just like happy and sad. It's like accepted, content, alive, vibrant, like all these different variables. And so that can help you if you're kind of like, you want to feel good here. I don't really know. Like if you're not into the emotions, like you're not really sure, you can get some inspiration there, but also you can post that image in your form so that they can have some inspiration. So it's like, what do you want to feel? Also, you can do a step above that and actually ask them how they don't want to feel. So for example, you can kind of tap into what they're scared of. So maybe they feel like they're going to feel stupid, or maybe they're going to feel excluded. If you know that those are the fears, but they really want to feel like supported and proud, you focus on the positive, but then you also in the back of your mind are proactively thinking, okay, they're scared of feeling excluded. How might this make them feel excluded? Or what can I do to really be inclusive for your members? And so by having that information, it's just like a step above it. But that's what I would do in terms of just identifying that emotion.
Yeah, and I must admit, I used to use the Wheel of Emotion when I was in my advertising days, because it's a phenomenal resource when you see it. You're like, holy crap, there's so many emotions. But it's a phenomenally powerful thing. And what I find really interesting, as you said, is it's when you use the word and then it can create the feeling as well. And there's a lot of power in understanding that if you do run a community. I really do believe it. But that's a phenomenal straight up, like this mic drop moments all the way through. We haven't even got to the confession. I'm like enthralled by the story so far.
I'm excited. It's so funny because I can talk about this stuff like all day because this is the thing too. Like like with community, and that's actually how I started out with community. I couldn't help myself. I actually like the reason why. So I actually manage Ramit Sethi's accelerator community, so his membership program and coaching program. But the reason, how did I get that position? Like, how did I get that? I joined one of his programs. I then signed up for that coaching program and I started helping people because I couldn't help it. I was like, oh, like I could edit your paper. Because I used to be an English teacher. I used to be an ESL teacher in Madrid. And so I was like, oh, well, I can read your document and give you some advice or, being supportive. I was always like that person that was just like, hey, like you're doing such a great job, and kind of obsessed with Facebook. Like my personal account, I was always on Facebook. And so basically I started just diving in and helping people, and the company noticed. They were like, this is interesting. Like, who's this person? And I consistently kept doing it because it was just something that I really enjoyed. And I think it was maybe 2 months in, they were like, hey, I got offered the position of community manager. And so I think that that kind of says something as well in terms of the work that I'm doing. It's not just because, I'm good at it and I'm strategic. It's that I actually really enjoy what I'm doing. And so, if you ask any of my friends, if I join a community, even if I'm not a community manager, I cannot help myself from adding value. So I joined this other program last year and I was like, there's no sort of roadmap document that shows all of the important posts. I'm going to make one, and I just went in and I made it and I shared it. And so it's the host of the community is thinking, oh, thank you. That's great. Other people, they can find posts more easily. I think that, just, I like doing that. And so that's I think where the authenticity comes through, because I just enjoy what I'm doing, but then I'm also really good at it. So it's kind of this awesome combination of just being doing what you love. I feel like I kind of embody that with community.
Definitely. And it's something as an observation for those of you on the video, is that something I notice is when you talk about communities, you light up. It's
Yeah.
Some people, you ask them about what they do and it's I kind of do this thing and people. Yeah. And I'm like, man, you need to stop that. You need to change whatever you're doing, where it's you light up about it. But you bring into a fascinating point there. Something I've seen evolve even in my own community and other communities I've been a part of is it seems that there's few people that really get into it. There's certain people in the community that spend as much time in it as I do. Is there anything you've noticed from people coming into communities and taking on that role?
That's actually really important. And that's how you can kind of, once you've got your community established, that's actually something you can do to take it to the next level. So as a team member, if I'm noticing that there's someone who's super active, they're always engaging and supporting, that's somebody that you could kind of turn into sort of maybe a mentor or somebody that's not officially on the team, but it could be a volunteer that is a moderator, or sort of what you can do is you can offer them something. So for example, I remember before I became the community manager for Accelerator, there was a perk. I remember I got offered some additional coaching as a thank you. And so if you have people that are authentically jumping in and helping and supporting your community, consider offering them something just a little bit more, or something that they're going to appreciate, so that they can kind of do it a little bit more officially. And that can take so imagine if you've got yourself as the host and maybe you've got a community manager, you then can sort of divide up some of the responsibility to some of these mentors or moderators or additional people. And it's having extra eyes, having extra eyes on your community and it could be something as simple as just encouraging other people, or sometimes as well flagging posts. Because this is the thing too, I love community, but there are moments where community is okay, and it's not just the community, it's certain people doing certain things, and you're thinking, can you read the guidelines? This is not okay. Oh my, and you can't you can't be a dick, right? You can't be yeah, you need to read the guidelines, delete, or you need to, depending on the community, you need to react in an appropriate way and also not make them feel those negative emotions, right? You need to make them feel
Absolutely.
proud and supported. But you also have to enforce guidelines. That's why they're there. And
Well,
so
just on
yeah,
that point, I've never seen something ensure a churning of a member more quickly than a public shaming.
oh yes. Oh yes. This is the thing. It's very like there's a fine line, like when to decide the between like a private message and a public message. And here's my rule of thumb, right? So if someone's being self-promotional, you're going to probably delete the post and you're going to private message them because you don't want to leave it up there, right? But imagine if imagine you have rules about like including a specific title, for example, and they don't put the title. And you're like, other people are going to see it. Other people are going to think it's okay to not have this title. That's when you just do a public little comment and you say, hey, John, thank you so much for, sharing your question. It's really great. Can I get you to update your post just to include the title? Here's the template. Here are the guidelines. Super appreciate it. Because then what's happening is, again, it's like a domino. That person is going to feel like, oh shit, I did something wrong. Okay, I better fix it. But then other people are going to see it. And there's two benefits. One, it teaches other people to actually follow the guidelines. But two, which most people don't think about, is that other people appreciate you of like enforcing the guidelines. Because if I'm in a community and I am taking the time to write out my specific title and like add specific information and somebody else doesn't, and then the community manager or host leaves it, like I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell? Why am I putting all this time in to
Double
do this? And they
standard.
don't even care. The double standard, enforce the guidelines, right? So it makes people, like other people, appreciate you enforcing the guidelines, even though in the moment you can kind of feel like, oh God, especially because other members don't know how many times you've told people to do a certain thing. So for you, you feel like, oh my God, like 5 times a day you're telling someone to do something or not do something. So for you, it can be kind of frustrating, like as a community manager or a host, if you're doing this yourself. But the members on the other side, if they're seeing just consistency, that adds to the community feel. And also like they appreciate it. People want a high quality community. They don't want, crappy questions or like people, depending on what it is, if somebody's kind of like freaking out, maybe it's like a community about like online business or getting publicity, something like that. And if you're just like, I don't know what to do, and there's no context, nobody can help you. Right. And so like having those guidelines that say, okay, have a specific title, give us some context. What do you think you should do? Try and answer your own question. And then other people can jump in and offer insights. Because if somebody's just, if it's a couple sentences and they're just kind of freaking out, like what people have to do is, hey, can you give us more context? We'd love to help. But like they're not
like a
setting
fishing
up.
expedition.
Exactly. It wastes people's time. And that's the thing too. Like you don't want your members to feel like, they come into the community and they're like, I really want to help people, but like it's all this ping pong back and forth in order to get information. Like you want people to come in and say, oh, look, I can help John. Drop it in there and go away. Not, oh, I'll follow up with John and then come back and get the information. And that's the thing, like most people don't talk about this at all, right? Like with community, it's not sexy. It like, guidelines and enforcing, like nobody really wants to focus on that. They just want to focus on like the benefits, right? Like, oh, like a community can, increase customer loyalty, or you can cross-sell things, or you can, promote other programs, increase retention, all this sort of stuff. But like there is like that 20% that it feels maybe like, okay, we're policing this or we're dealing with it, but it's necessary. It's part of like the whole package.
Definitely. I almost want to throw another thing on that. I'm very fortunate in my community. I feel like I've been very lucky and like there's a very high quality of question coming through. But I have a paid community. I want to know if this is something we see that is this a gap between free and paid? Is this one of the things that becomes more of a challenge?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, like personally myself, I don't recommend having a free group. Like for example, it depends on your stage of business as well. But a lot of people, they're just starting out their businesses and they're like, I'm going to set up a free group because I can, get more subscribers and promote my products and like Pied Piper everyone in, and it's going to be perfect and people will engage. And they don't realize how much time and effort it takes to sort of have that high quality caliber community. And so in that sense, I'm just like, don't do a free group. Don't go there. If you've got your business model all set up and you're looking for a way to then expand, having a free Facebook community might be a good option. But in terms of quality control, like when you have a paid community, that's in and of itself is making the level that much higher because people are paying. There's like a gate, like a barrier to entry. When it's just a free Facebook group, it's like, okay, anybody can come here. There's no standard. There's no filter, I guess. It might just be from subject matter. So it could be like a Facebook group for podcasting, for example. But there's no real kind of separation, I guess. And that's actually something that's really important as well. Like the best communities are sort of specific. It's like you're solving the same problem, or you're going through the same situation, or you're like somehow you're all like you've got this like
camaraderie type setup.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's something that's tying you together. That's what makes community really strong. It's just like in real life. If you go and you hang out with your entrepreneurial friends, it's very different than say if you hang out with, friends that have a 9-to-5 job, right?
Absolutely.
So there's that, it's different. So if you had, for example, if you had a group, it's all your friends, like that could be really weird because you've got your friends that are like 9-to-5ers, you've got your entrepreneurial friends, you've got like all these different people, and you're kind of, it's like, can you imagine if you invite them all over for dinner and you're all like, so what do I talk about? Because you can't talk about your business necessarily because you're going to alienate these people over here. Then you don't want to maybe talk about the fact that you're going on a really nice long vacation because then you're going to alienate the 9-to-5ers. Like it's the same thing. It's just in an online community.
Definitely. And like, I like your, we'll go back to the sporting example. It's like, if you had a community for yoga instructors or a community for people who are into health and fitness, it's like, it's very, very different conversations, and it's very, very different what they would talk about. But I think there's, I have to say, I agree on that one. It's like specific communities, and even more importantly, in my opinion, specific paid communities are the really nice thing, because my own community is by application only and it's paid. So it's like
it's even better. It's even better.
It's very exclusive, if you hadn't noticed.
It is.
But
it sounds lovely.
But the other side of that is that my members feel a part of something on the other side, because not just anyone can join. You can't buy your way in, and you can't just apply your way in, and not. So it's an exclusivity feeling, and that creates some camaraderie. So I agree on that point in a huge way. I've seen it.
That's such a good point. And even just the fact that, like, you don't even have to mention it, although you could message on it, but like the fact that not everybody gets in instantly makes it appear in terms of like, I'm a part of something special. I'm a part of something that not everybody has access to. Like for me, just like hearing it, it's like, ooh, like it just sounds really good. So you're like, you can capitalize on that. For example, even if you sprinkled that in, like, so I'm not, what format is your community on? Is it on Facebook or is it on a different platform?
Oh, well, isn't that a controversial question in itself?
It is.
So we're on Facebook, and we also have a membership site as well. So we do both.
Okay. So here's the thing then. So imagine with the Facebook one, like you can totally sprinkle that feeling into everything. So imagine like your cover image mentioning that this is like an application only select group of people. Even just having the words like as a sub, like a tagline would be amazing. Or even just like mentioning it in some of your main posts. So if you have like a regular post that happens say on Mondays, like just sprinkle it in. Like, just like, it's so wonderful to be with you guys, you know, this hand-picked group of people. Like just mentioning it is going to remind people like, oh yeah, like I'm special. Like not everybody else gets to be in here. So like, that's definitely something that you can like, that you can capitalize on as well.
So what's interesting is like we're recording this now, and the podcast will probably come out like, let's say a month from this time. Is like by the time this comes out, like I'm going to be, guys, let's feel exclusive. I'll put it in, and then they got to listen to this and go, oh, I see what's up.
They're going to see it in action. And then what you could even do, you could even have a discussion with your community and even just say like, hey, like, and after the fact, you can sort of like kind of talk about it and say like, hey, how do you guys feel? How do you feel about being in this community? And like even just starting that conversation of the fact that it's a handpicked select community is then going to trigger the fact that it's a handpicked community. So it's like this snowball effect of just making people feel amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something I can certainly improve on or enhance. So, I mean, even if no one listens to this episode, which they will, but like I feel like I've gained something here. So that's brilliant. So thank you so much for that point. But
You are so welcome.
There's a point I want to dig into on that, because something I've been very against is like, I don't like these posts where it's like, Monday, how you feeling?
Oh God.
So you mentioned routine posts and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that at all. So something for me is like, I don't have them at all. And it's very organic what we post about or talk about. It's topical based on what's going on. How do you feel about that?
Oh my God. I agree. Like this idea of like having everything pre-programmed. It's like Monday motivator, Tuesdays talking, or Wednesdays, whatever. No, because it's automated. It's not actually really doing anything. I think what you have to do now, here's the thing though, some groups will have them and it's strategic and you have to test it. Like you have to see if it actually helps people. So for example, if you have on Fridays something where it's like you can celebrate wins for the week, for example, if people are actually using it, go for it, do it and keep it. But I mean, I know that in some communities we've had say 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And now there's only Friday because Monday and Wednesday, it didn't hack the program. It wasn't adding value. And this is the thing too, is whenever you're looking at your community, like the number one question ultimately is, does this help my member in some way? Does it make them feel good? Does it help them accomplish something? And if it doesn't, pull it. Because the last thing you want are these posts that get auto posted and they just sort of float down and then they float down and there's maybe 2 likes on it. It's like a graveyard, because that then is sending a message actually that it kills a little bit of engagement, because it's sending a message that people aren't engaging. And so it's like, oh, people aren't really engaging, so I'm not going to engage that much. But then when you have posts that are, like you said, organic and like real, and people actually are engaging, like if you go in and you see a post that has 100 comments, you bet your butt that you're going to go in there and be like, oh, I'm going to toss my hat in the ring and add my 2 cents. But if there's a post and there's 2 likes on it, like how does that make you feel? It makes it feel like it's kind of dead. So I 100% agree. I would say either don't have them or really like test them and see, does this actually add value?
Well, I mean, my experience with them, unfortunately, there's this fascinating thing that happens with people, which biases form. We're all really biased. Now, the problem is in having been in groups where they've done that, Monday motivation, Tuesday pitch, or whatever it is, inevitably, because we've seen that done badly, I don't want to bring it into my group because of the taste of what it's been like elsewhere. I'm not even sure I would test it. Yeah, it's a very interesting one, because I wonder if, and I've seen some groups out there that do it and that I would call or run by successful people. But I think your point trumps all there in saying, well, if it adds value, then it's okay. And I think that's a golden nugget in what type of content we should all be thinking about creating.
Yeah. And also like, that's a good point. Like if anybody's feeling apprehensive about doing these posts, don't go and set up 5 posts a week. Like don't do that. Like what you can do actually is you can test it without being automatic. So imagine if you do a post about sharing your wins or sharing your struggles for the week, and you notice that you get a lot of engagement. Do it the same time every week and just test it, but do it yourself. Like take the time to write it and see if people consistently are posting and consistently enjoying it. And then, if you do that for a couple of weeks and you see like, wow, like people really seem to be enjoying this, then automate it and then leave it like up and running and see what happens. And if you notice that like, okay, it's starting to going down, pull it. And so like, that's like, it's an authentic way of testing it. It's not just like, all right, we've got our 5 daily posts. They're all in Meet Edgar or Hootsuite or whatever it is that's automatically posting them out. Like, don't do that. Like start small, test it, see if it works for your group, and then automate it, right? Like you don't just automate right out of the gate. Like that's just, no, don't do that.
Well, maybe I'm contrarian on this one. I don't automate anything. I think one of the things you said earlier is like, I actually care. And I think that's one of the reasons why my community has been successful. So to me, it's like I kind of come back to, I'm not sure automating shows that care. And it's like, especially when, if you use Hootsuite or Buffer, it says posted by Hootsuite and Buffer. I'm really concerned that if I behave that way, that my community will think, well, he's not here. And truth of the matter is,
a valid concern.
Yeah. But the truth of the matter is I actually want to be there as well. So it's like,
this is also different. Like, this is the thing too. Like, I think as well, like, so for you, like yours is like, it's a membership. So it's not a course-based community, right? So it's not like in addition to a course. I think that that's a really interesting distinction as well, because I know that for people that are running a community where it's like, you're in it, like that's the product, like the membership is the product, you are in it more. And so like there is this understanding. So for example, maybe it's access to you, or maybe it's access to the people that are in the community. Then no, like you probably don't want to automate it, because that is sending a message of like, oh, well, I don't have time to write a post, or this isn't as important. I'm just going to kind of like set it up and maybe automate it. I think that, so for example, with course bonus groups, I think that people can definitely take it too far. Like I said, like I wouldn't be setting up 5 automated posts, but if there's something that people really appreciate, like having, say, an accountability thread on Mondays, or, you know, sharing their wins on Fridays, and you're doing it every week, I would say that like setting up an automated post for that is fine. But then you also want to make sure that there's other ways that you're interacting or that you're adding value so that people don't even question it. Like, and that's actually a really good point too. Like, if you're in it and you're engaging and people just like feel that you're there and that you care about them, they're not going to care if you schedule 1 or 2 posts. But if you're just like, everything is automated and then you happen to sprinkle in some comments here and there, that's when people are going to be like, what is this? Especially if they're paying for access to you, or they're paying for that community experience. I think that would leave kind of a bad taste in my mouth.
Definitely. But you've actually brought up a really good point. If you're a course provider and you're doing a 6-week course and there's specific things that are meant to go out each week, I'm okay with that. I think automation in that regards is a different story. I was more thinking of it from my point of view there, but I want to almost open up a question that I'm dying to ask you. This is almost like my number one. To Facebook group or not to Facebook group?
Oh my God, it's such a good question. And it so depends. Okay. Here are some things that you have to check off your list. Here's the number one question that people don't ask. Are like your people, is your audience on Facebook? Do they like Facebook? So imagine if you're creating, I don't know, like you have a course and it's about like productivity. And, you know, one part of your course is like getting off social media. And then you have a community on Facebook that
if someone's doing that, that's hilarious, by the way. that's
like it's a little like it's an oxymoron, right? So that's something to take into consideration. Now, but then on the flip side, if people are already on Facebook, it is advantageous for you, because Facebook, it draws people in. It feels more personal because you can see like the person, but then also kind of what's happening in their life. So it's like, it does create that sense of like, hey, I'm a member of this group, and check out, this is, I don't know why I keep saying John. John is apparently my example for the day. So John, you know, he just, you know, achieved something, or he's in this yoga class, or, you know, he has a puppy. I have a puppy too. Like it allows people to kind of feel like they can know people better. But I would say that the number one question is, first of all, like, are your people on it, or do they like it, or will they use it? And the second option though, as well, is, you know, for yourself, like, are you okay with Facebook? Because I know that some people, they hate Facebook. So imagine if you don't use Facebook at all, and then you're like, okay, so I'm going to create this community. And then the only reason that you're going onto Facebook is for this community. That might not be the best kind of approach for it. So I know like another option that I highly recommend is Slack. And it's really interesting because Slack is actually, you know, people generally think of it for like internal communication for companies. So I actually use that with a lot of my clients. But it actually is fantastic, especially for courses, because you can create different channels. So you can create a channel for each module, or you can create like a section where it's like, here's the water cooler, or here's where you can share your wins. So it feels a little bit more like a forum. And so that can kind of avoid, I think that like the number one complaint like with Facebook is that it's like the wall. So it feels a little bit noisy, and it goes by, you know, the last person to comment or the last person to post, not sort of organized by like content or, you know, when it was posted. So it can feel a little bit more organized if you're looking for that. So I would say, like, the two questions I would be asking myself if I were, you know, setting up a group, I would say, you know, does my audience use Facebook? Is that something that's going to be a good fit for them, that they're going to be able to use easily? And then also, what's more important to me? Like, is it that I want something to be very structured and easy to like kind of find the information so people can focus? I would go with Slack in that case. Or am I okay with Facebook? And actually, this is a really good point. You can hack Facebook. So remember I mentioned like creating a roadmap document in that community because I was adding value. That is a fantastic way to sort of hack this idea that, you know, Facebook is all over the place, because you just create this document that has links to all of your core module content or the main posts. And then people can just go in and say, oh, this was from week 1, click, and then they've got the post. So I would say, like, it's definitely, and it's a controversial question because there's a lot of people that are like, don't set it up on Facebook, because Facebook, it's not yours. Like, let's just be real.
It's not yours. It's a very real reason. And the thing too is they change the rules, you know? And so, for example, like, I'm very into systems and optimizing my time. So I actually created a system using a third-party app called Gridix that is like analytics for Facebook groups. And I could make these amazing spreadsheets that would allow me to click on a direct link to each person's profile, so I could message them. So this is actually something I would do, you know, to welcome people in. I would actually private message people. But this spreadsheet made it super fast, so I was really efficient. And so with the recent changes with Facebook, none of those spreadsheets work. And actually Gridix no longer can pull photos, names, or profiles of your members. And so now this amazing optimization that I created is gone and I can't use it. So, I mean, and that's the thing though, is, I think that if you use Facebook, you just have to be open to the fact that they're going to change the rules and you have to roll with it. And if you're okay with that, great. Like, I'll create a different system. That's kind of on me. But if you're not okay with that, if you want control, if you want to know that, okay, this is how it works and it's always going to work this way, don't build it on Facebook, build it on Slack, or build it on another, say, application or platform where you own it and where you control it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point of view. Personally, I find myself feeling very torn because, say what you will about Facebook, but their groups and the features, it's amazing and it's free. Has everyone forgotten this?
Yeah. Like, let's just be real. It's free and it's easy. Okay. So if you don't have like a tech background, you literally go in, click, 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 boom, you have a group. Add a picture, add a pinned post and a welcome, invite people in. Like, it really makes it like easy. It's not difficult. And so I think that for a lot of, you know, business owners that either A, don't have time or don't have the knowledge to like kind of set something up, it really is kind of like community in a box. Like, it's just like, there we go, like, set it up. But I mean, that's where people get sucked into that idea of like, oh, I can just set up a group and it will magically engage. I mean, you can set it up and the foundation is there, but is it actually set up so that you can engage people? That's like the real question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other side of that, and, you know, to even out this conversation is like, because I have a Facebook group and honestly, it's been a success. I would call it a success. And I'm very appreciative to Facebook in like the events, the way we can broadcast, like there's some huge wins.
Yeah.
The downsides though is like in recent times with Cambridge Analytica and all these things from there, it's like, I do have concerns of the well-being of my community members and then how their data or posts may be used. I also have concerns in like, this is the number one thing I hear is like, I came onto the group and for 10 minutes and then I spent 50 minutes doing other things I shouldn't be doing. It's like, oh, I kind of caused that.
Distraction. Yeah. That's the thing is Facebook. I mean, they have people like engineers, specifically their job is to make Facebook sticky and pull you in. And like, I mean, everyone has had that. I know for myself, like I've become very good at like getting in and focusing on what I'm doing. But there are times when you're like, oh, look at this video. There's such a cute little cat over here. And all of a sudden it's like time warp. And you're like, how did I just spend 40? What was it? Or you don't even know what you're doing. Like you have to be really careful. You're like, why did I come in here? Right. I'm doing this. Like that's the thing. I think that's actually something that you can teach your members though. Cause I mean, I've learned it for myself because I'm in Facebook all the time and I'm productive. So if I can learn it, other people can learn it. And so, you as a host, you can even say like, hey guys, you can even have a conversation and say, hey, does anyone ever get distracted by Facebook? Here are some ways that you can really stay focused and make sure that the community is adding to your experience and not, necessarily say sucking you in or taking away. So I think that's important as well to really support your members and actually show them how to use it and how to use it effectively.
Definitely. So I want to ask another question here about engagement, because this is something I think is crucial to the success of any community, is like how engaged or rallied up the members are. What do you look at to increase engagement in a community?
Well, I think that the main thing is making people feel a certain way. So for example, when people feel like their desired emotion, they're going to do more of what you're rewarding. So for example, like if you want people to be having conversations with each other, you want to reward that, or you want to kind of set the tone with that. So for example, this is something actually as well. Now this applies to course related communities. It might not apply so much for if like the membership is the product, but I know that, some hosts, they feel like that they have to, like, imagine you have like 300 people join in like a day, and you're trying to make sure that you welcome everyone in and you're trying to provide that personal touch, but actually going through and doing individual messages isn't realistic for 300 people in a day. And so what you can do is you can teach them, like you can teach the members to be sort of, it's like peer-to-peer community as well. So it's like setting the tone for, here's how involved I'm going to be in the community. And also here's like what we expect of you as members. So for example, if you go in and you're commenting on every single post, you're setting the tone that, okay, the host is going to be replying to everything. If that's what you want to set, great. If that's not what you want to set, like if you have this idea that you're launching this week, you're going to be super active and then you're going to like bring down your engagement, don't do that. Like you need to set your hours. I call them like what's your happy time? Like your happy hours. Like if you want to be in your community X amount of time a week, start that from the beginning so that you set the expectation for your members. And so like with that, by doing that, you actually get people to engage more because they're going to engage with each other. So that's something in terms of engagement that just like setting expectations. So if you want it to be like a direct conversation between you and the members, that's great. And you set that. But I think that if you're looking for people to kind of engage with each other, setting that expectation. And in terms of engagement, so you want people to be posting, you want people to be asking questions, you want people to be sort of sharing things like proactively. And that really kind of depends on the environment that you're creating. So if you're creating a place where it's okay to share struggles, it's okay to share problems, and then also rewarding people that do what you want them to do. So for example, if somebody posts a question and then you and a lot of other members jump in and they're like, wow, this was so great, thank you so much, really appreciate it, that person's going to do it again because they're getting that sort of that positive feedback. So I would say in terms of getting people to do more of what you want them to do. So if you want people to be posting questions, reward them for that. Or if you want people to be, commenting and supporting or answering other questions, you reward people for doing that. And that's a really good point too. Like if your time is super limited and you're trying to decide how to engage in your community, don't just be randomly like, hey, it's great to see you, or, doing this. Like what I would do is I would focus on the people that are helping other people. I would thank them. So imagine that's the only thing you do, right? You thank other people for helping other people. That makes people want to help other people more. And that's the that's the engagement that you're looking for. So it's basically, I think it boils down to just reward people for the actions that you want them to be doing because they'll do it more.
I really like there's almost an underlying theme in the way you speak, which is awesome, by the way. But I look at this and I'm like sitting here and I'm going, well, really, if I get the emotions right in my group, so I survey my group, I bring it all in, I have that information, and then I reward and discourage the behaviors I want to see within my own group, along with actually caring about my members, then it's really hard to go wrong.
Seriously, this is the thing. I think that here's the thing. This is actually a really good point. It's really difficult to go wrong if you start with a strong foundation. If you start with that from the very beginning, because you set the tone. The problem is when you have to re-educate people. Because imagine you've got a community and it's like it's been there for a year and you don't really have strong guidelines. You haven't been enforcing things. People are kind of doing whatever they want. And you're sitting there like, okay, what do I do? How do I get people to do what I want them to do and not do what I don't want them to do? Does that make sense? Yes. And the thing is with that, it's uncomfortable because it's a period of time where you're re-educating your community and it can be difficult. So, I mean, helping, for example, like I recently helped a client relaunch their program. And in the relaunch, we wanted to make sure that people weren't tagging the host all the time because it was insane. Like it was just like hundreds of people tagging. And so basically in the launch, it was my job to make sure that we establish that new guideline of, please don't tag the host. They're going to be active, but we're not going to be tagging. And so what happened is you've got probably it was 3 days or 2 days even, mostly the first day of really being hard on that guideline, deleting things or messaging things publicly saying, hey, this is great. Can you untag this person? Sending private messages and just really being it feels hard because you're trying to cut this habit, but it could apply to anything. So it might be tagging, it might be the way people post. But if you decide you want to make a change, what you have to do is just consistently enforce it for at least 4 days so that people can see the difference. And then also what happens is they don't see other people doing that mistake or that behavior. So they stop doing it. And I think that's the problem.
I just have to laugh for a second. 4 days is nothing. If you said 4 weeks, I was like, oh, this is a stretch. But really, that's not a big obstacle to overcome. To change a behavior as a community owner, I'm up for 4 days. I think 4 days is nothing in the scope of things. So that's a really good sign.
This is the thing. Yeah, I think that, and I mean, I would say that especially, well, to clarify as well, during a launch, it would be 4 days. So that's when it's really high intensity. There's all these new people. Because that's the thing too. If you're getting all these new people in, they're looking around. They're trying to establish what's good and what's okay here and what isn't. And so if they see other people doing the behavior, they're going to think it's okay. So that's why you have to just be really strong with it for that 4 days. And then it's the new people, they don't even create that bad habit. And then the veterans, they learn that, okay, this is the new way we're doing things. I would say that, if it's not a launch and it's just, you're trying to change a habit and there aren't any new people coming in, that's where it's going to probably take longer. Probably. I'm sorry. Actually,
yeah.
You're like, shit.
Look, I'm very fortunate. My community is in great shape. And if anyone's listening, guys, I'm very appreciative that a lot of the stuff we're talking about, we're on top of here. But nonetheless, I really believe in that. And it's funny that, transitioning the culture of a group, if you're someone that's running a group and it's not where it is, it'd be easy to lose sight of these things and for a community to fall off. So what I'm taking from this is if you run a community, you've got to, one, be aware of this stuff from the beginning. Two, you have to enforce it because if you slip and then the cost of changing down the road is very, very highly expensive.
Definitely. I would say anybody that is starting a community, start it off right. Take the time to set up the foundation to know how they want to feel and set up your system that way so that it's not just okay, we're going to do this here. And I think this, and please have guidelines. I don't know how many people I've spoken to, yeah, I don't actually have guidelines. It's a ticking time bomb. You were just waiting for someone to go do something that is super inappropriate, but you didn't have guidelines. It's okay. I can do whatever I want here. Seriously, anybody that's listening and doesn't have guidelines, go and put them up now. Even just basic guidelines, what's okay and what isn't. That's
What's fascinating. I've seen someone with guidelines and I just laugh when I hear this, but I'm going to say you got to have good guidelines. I've seen some where it's just don't be a dick. That's the guidelines.
Yeah, no, like you gotta be, this is the thing, because somebody's definition of being a dick, there's gonna be definitely varied levels. Like, I wasn't being a dick. This is different. Like, you have to kind of spell it out for people. Like, you have to say, like, don't do this. Like, don't be self-promotional. And also self-promotional, specify what is being self-promotional. Self-promotional is posting links, putting up links to your site, sharing an opportunity then that leads to, a free opportunity that leads to a paid offer. Oh, a webinar that you just happen to be offering that will be interesting, but you have to sign up for it. Like, I've seen it all. Or here's the thing too, like, someone will write a really awesome post and then they just happen to drop a link in. It's like, don't drop a link, offer the value. And if people want a link, they will ask for it. And then you'll be able to do it in the comments. But anybody that just right off the bat, like, writes this awesome post and then just like drops their link in, that to me as a community manager, it's like nails on chalkboard. It's like, why did you drop the link? Just leave the link out and people will reach out to you. People will probably like look on, this is another good point too. For anybody that's in a Facebook group and you want to authentically promote yourself, but not be a dick, just add massive value and make sure that your Facebook profile tells people what you do and what your website is. Because people will creep your profile.
Mic drop moment once again. The fascinating.
Seriously.
It's a very interesting point, and again, thank you to my community for not doing this stuff and putting me through this pain. But when you go there, it's like, if you're someone that's behaving like that, it's repulsive. Like, it's actually putting people off working with you. When in reality, all you had to do is just be clean with your approach, and it would have worked out.
Seriously, it's fascinating, and like, I see it all the time. It's actually really funny because now when I scan a community, I'm really like, not cynical, I don't know what the word is, but it's like I have this like radar now for like levels of self-promotion. I'm like, okay, like that, no, we're okay, or that's inappropriate, or what are you doing here? Or like, sometimes I just laugh. I'm just like, really? Like, come on. Like, it's just, sometimes it's so blatant where you're just like, delete, and this is a good point. Some people feel like uncomfortable about just blatantly deleting posts and then not saying anything. If it's blatantly self-promotional, it's getting deleted and there's no explanation, because not saying anything is much stronger than actually saying something. Because if I delete something and then say, hey, I removed your post because it was self-promotional, please read the guidelines, it's like, I'm spending a lot of my time doing that. But if I just delete your post and then you see that the post is gone, I'm sending a very strong message that, hey, like, no. And they know. Everybody knows when they're like writing their posts and they feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's okay. No, that's the thing. Like,
it's interesting. It was a concern for me because something that does come up, I really think that in communities, people want to know what other people do or who they are. So I've actually made a member directory. So we have one that lists everyone up because, some people with their Facebook profiles wasn't very helpful. You couldn't work it out. And I understand it, your privacy settings and all the rest. But for none of the rest, I was like, well, I think we'll have our own directory for members. So
that is a fantastic way to give your members what they want and need and avoid people kind of getting all like, how can I secretly slip in that this is my business and this is what I do? Like, because again, people can smell it a mile away. At least I can. I'm pretty sure other members feel it too. Like, they see you kind of talking and dropping a link and it's like, well, why? Like, it's just, like you said, it doesn't make people want to work with you if you're self-promoting. Like, don't do it. Just help. This is the thing. Just authentically help people, be a good person, and it'll come to you. Like, people will be attracted to you just because you're authentically helping other people. Just do that. Be consistently helpful to other people, and good shit's going to come your way.
Absolutely. It's a really fascinating topic. We could go on about this for days and days. And it's funny, before this episode started, you said, if you want to do 2 episodes, I'm really cool with that. And I'm like, I'm not sure, will we get through 1? And I'm like, no. Well, what the irony is here is that we're an hour in and we haven't even done your confession. And I'm sitting
I just realized, I'm like, where are we slipping that in? I don't know. It's too funny.
The challenge I have is I feel like we could go another hour without your confession and then another hour, because there's so many things that just keep coming up for me. And I'm like, we could go deeper and deeper. So what I actually think we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do another episode. We'll do an episode on the confession now.
I think we're going to have to, because like, I mean, it's juicy and I think we don't want to rush it.
Yeah, I didn't want to miss it. I even said Yahtzee before it because I thought it was such a
Yahtzee, that's the one. That we're building up some suspense here because people are going to want to know what the Yahtzee confession is.
So I'll tell you what we'll do. We're gonna wrap this episode up from here, and we're gonna say like this has been an absolute pleasure, and I think there's so many things and more things that will continue to go on from there. So I'm gonna call this end of part 1, and what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna do another episode with Diana Tower, which is on the confession and diving into maybe some follow-up questions and things that I think are going to be really cool. So guys, for those of you that are interested, and you should be interested, if you have a community, I'm going to encourage you to check out dianatower.com. But in particular, I'm going to get you to go to dianatower.com/Charley, CHARLEY. And Diana's been so kind in which she's put together a downloads pack where you can get all her information on building communities and awesome stuff she's put together. And on top of that, honestly, just worth going to her site and having a look around if you have a community at all or are thinking about one. I spent a good 20 minutes on the site before recording this episode, and I think there's a ton of value and things that can be extracted from there. So Diana, I want to say thank you for doing part 1 with me, but I will be arranging with you after this. We'll be booking in part 2.
Part 2. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I mean, I totally agree. We could just talk for I don't even know how many more hours.
we might test that theory. We'll see how we go. It could turn into 3 parts, guys. Who knows from there?
It would be a first. That would be a first.
Challenge accepted. All right. So guys, we're going to wrap this one up from here. Thank you so much again. Like there's been so many golden moments. I think anyone who's running a community or is thinking about it should pay attention to. So massive thank you to you, Diana. That is Confessions of the Business Owner Part 1 with Diana Tower.